Welcome to a special episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, and today our focus is on the Southwest. We're off to Bristol City. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Right, we've got a short episode today, but an extra special little episode for you. As many of you know, we have a very soft spot for Bristol City FC. Have followed them since they were Bristol Academy, since they were in the Champions League, beating Barcelona. You remember those nights?
I do. One of the best nights of my life was that night at Ashton Great.
Wow, okay. Well, there you go. That's how special it was for us. And we were very lucky to be invited to the club last week to spend a bit of an afternoon/day with them. We spent some time with Bristol City Sport Group CEO and chairperson of Bristol City Women, Gavin Marshall, and their new head of women's football, Romanay Pinnock, as well, to find out more about their new women's football strategy. Had a bit of lunch with them, and we also got to head out into the community with some of the players. So it was a really, really nice day, and it just felt like a really exciting time for Bristol,
and
wasn't it?
Kind of full circle in a way, because one of my first Guardian articles was with Romanay back in the day when she works on a project in South Africa, her project Badgers Academy, and I interviewed her about that, and now she's in England and thriving at Bristol.
Thriving at Bristol, but still getting used to the weather, I think. But it was really nice to sit down and have a really frank discussion about, what all the work they're doing at Bristol and about their new strategy. And here's what they had to say.
I guess we could start with the new strategy and how exciting it is to have that finally come into place. How do you feel it launched? How it was received?
It's always exciting to put a strategy in place because it sort of marks the path ahead. And I think we've had so much great feedback on it that I feel it's also really pushed the work forward. So now, not only have we had positive feedback, there is a huge community that will now hold us accountable for delivering it. And everyone's been super. The actual launch event was lovely, and the sort of comms and PR that have followed has been really positive, really encouraging. Lots of people reaching out, wanting to follow us or work with us. And I think, especially for me, starting new here, it was such a nice opportunity for people to see who I am, see what we're about with the strategy, and are now reaching out if that feels like something that they want to be involved in.
You say community there as well. I feel like Bristol has always been that community club. It's something that you've always seemed to get right, I've found, when you look at the many years you've been going. And how important was it to have that part of it in part of the strategy? I know you want to reach out to the community more and do work within the community.
Yeah, it was really important. I mean, that's why we're here, really, around trying to inspire the community through sport. And it was very different, this strategy. We did a 3-year strategy in 2021, but really, at the time, I didn't have a head coach, didn't have a general manager or head of women's football. So it was sort of me with a couple of people helping and talking to the owners and coming up with something on sort of, in a very small group. Whereas this strategy was great because, we've made so much progress since then. In 2021, we've got such amazing staff, we've got such amazing players who really, really buy into the club and what we're trying to achieve. So, and we had someone external in Lowry to come who's done a fantastic job of working with all our stakeholders to put it together. So, it shows how far we've come, but the women's game has come in those 3 years, really. And it was so exciting to release it because a lot of work went in. And in terms of your question on the community, that was driven from the players. We want to inspire the community, but what's so special in terms of that pledge of going into all the different schools is that came from engaging with the players and came from them, really. And their idea, they've bought into it, and they'll deliver it. So that's probably the most pleasing part of the strategy for me.
I guess it came at the perfect time, maybe the strategy as well. I know after the reset of last season and the disappointment of, I guess, going back to the championship, but also it's a real chance to, I guess, start building that foundations again to make it a proper, to get it right as you try and push back to reach the top division.
No, that's right. I mean, so much has changed since we did our 3-year strategy in 2021. And we're probably a bit ahead of schedule. The aim was to sort of try and get promoted in 3 years was the target that we set, where we got promoted in 2. But we put the wheels in motion around, in January in terms of putting the strategy. And obviously at the time we were still hoping to stay in the WSL. We've had turnover of staff. Obviously since then we appointed head of women's football. We've got a new head coach. So we've gone through a lot of change and some difficult times. Towards the end of last season was tough. So you're right. It comes at a nice time where we've got some new staff, some new energy, whether it's players, whether it's our coaches or our first head of women's football. So yeah, it was a great to get it released, a bit of a relief really, and say, right, this is what we're about. This is the plan for the next 3 years, and now we've got to deliver it.
It feels like longevity as well is a part of the strategy. I think sometimes in football, the expectation is always, what position are we going to finish? How many trophies are we going to win? Are we going to get promoted? But actually, for sustainability, I guess there needs to be longevity in the strategy, right?
That's right. I mean, we're custodians of the club. The club will still be going on beyond all of our players, beyond me, beyond Romanay. So, it's important that we take a long-term view. Obviously, in football, it's always very tempting to take a short-term view, particularly in men's football. And I think what we've tried to do is it was the same. When we looked in 2021, we said then we weren't going to be defined success of whether we got promoted or not. We did get promoted, and that was great, albeit a difficult season in the WSL. But I think it's important that we don't. There's a lot of unknowns still. We don't know what the competition structure is going to look like. I certainly hope we're not stuck in an 11-team championship for too long. So I think rather than that, I think we've got to concentrate on doing the right things for the long term growth and health of the football club, and success will come if we do that.
A lot of that is probably about around revenue and as well. And I know it's in the strategy about revenue building, both through sponsorship and developing players. How important is that, to become more sustainable as a football club?
It's really important. I mean, at the moment we're losing over $1 million a year. And that's funded by one individual, one family, and so that's not a great place to be at. We want to certainly in my time here, I want us to be sustainable, future proof, if you like, rather than reliant on one individual, which is what we are at the moment. So revenue growth is really important, and that's one of the reasons we published the strategy. We want to find more partners, want to find more sponsors, more potential investors, people who like the strategy, who buy into it, and want to be on the journey with us. It's expensive business, professional sport. It's great that now our players, female players, are being paid more what they're worth. There's been a lot of salary inflation, which is a good thing, but equally it comes at a cost, and we've got to. It's important for the game as a whole, and for the league, but for us as a club to drive our revenue, whether that's match day, whether that's commercial revenue, or whether that's via player trading. I mean, we've had a bit of a chip on our shoulder for a long time, that we've developed an awful lot of players, for other teams, and never really felt rewarded or recognised for that. And with the Naomi Lizelle transfer, that's the first time where a club has come and offered us what we think is a transfer fee that we're really happy with, which I think reflects the development that we've put into Naomi and the work we've done. So it was the first time we've done a deal which was right for the player. It was right for the club that were buying her. They've got a fantastic player and a fantastic person, but also we were pleased with how we were compensated. It wasn't an insignificant. It was a six-figure sum. So we're hoping that now that's changing now within the women's game, and that's something that we would expect over time. We're not going to produce a Naomi that often every year, unfortunately, but when we do produce a player like that, it's good to know that there's a system in place where we'll get compensated, so we can go and invest in the academy and find the next Naomi.
For sure.
I was going to ask you though, is that what kind of attracted you to the role as well? Is the ethos of the club?
The community stuff we touched on earlier is what attracted me. Coming from Badgers, as Sophie knows, a big part of that club is creating a sense of belonging for staff and players. I think if staff and players feel that they are valued, that they belong and that they can feel that they're cared for, we will do better for it. And that came across quite strongly in my initial engagements, even though it was online. It was that's how strong it came through. That online, I could still get that sense that community was important, making people feel valued, pushing against the inequalities and the inequities of the men's game. It does come through, and yes, it's definitely part of the reason why I'm here.
But also, I guess that experience as well, managing badges as well, and doing that must serve you so well when you're looking at, revenue strands or player development. That must serve you so well.
Yeah, twofold. Badges is a non-profit, so just constantly going out and selling the cause, it was a huge part of that, and it's still a big part of professional women's football. To say like the sort of the value we see on paper is not the true value. We have to look at the growing fandom. We have to look at the different types of fans and what's possible, almost with a startup mindset when we go into that valuation journey. So yeah, it's a tough one to sort of put your head into and just push constantly. But I think women's football in the UK is very much in that space where brands are starting to say, actually, you know what, that's who I want to be associated with, and I can see the wave and I can see the speed at which it's growing.
It's all of the stats say, I think all of the research shows that women's sport, but women's football in particular, is an untapped market. There is a high ceiling about the brand or the revenue that you can raise, but also the fans that you can reach. So I guess that's super exciting time to be kind of, I guess, trying things out, but also building the club and kind of building that revenue.
There was an interesting stat, I think it's the 2022 findings of UEFA, and my exact number might be wrong, but it was 60-something% of fans of the women's game are more likely to engage with the brand they see on the shirt, and that number is hugely greater than the men's. And it's almost as if that men's market is saturated in terms of fans engaging with the visuals that they're seeing on brands and on the boards, etc. And that stat alone is so much to take to a brand and say, these people the growing fan base will look at this name, they will be Googling it, they will engage with it. And I'm sure it's only going to increase.
I wonder if it was a similar report. It was kind of post-Euros that touched on the kind of Gen Z. I think it was maybe 13 to 24, and that age bracket, that demographic is often doesn't engage that much with sport. And actually that was one of the fastest growing demographics in women's football, which is so interesting, because I think sometimes we do have that mindset of thinking it works in the men's game, it works in the women's. But that must make it difficult you touched on, what you lose per year, and when the game is growing so fast, it must almost feel like you're almost at a point where maybe you'll start to break even and then it shifts another so many yards again. It's tough, I guess, with the game. It's a good and a bad thing, I guess, the growth of the game, how quick it is.
Yeah, and it's it's not a smooth line. We found that in the Championship. We averaged 7,000 last year in the WSL, and people had a great time and had a great match day, and we got great feedback, and we didn't win any games, and we expect to win most of our home games this year, that's for sure. So we thought we'd retain more of those fans than we did, and unfortunately the first 3 home games we've had about 2,000. So it is tough, and it's not it's not a smooth line. Each time you feel that you're making progress, maybe you get a bit of a kick in the shin and a reminder that you still have a long way to go, because that's where we're at in terms of the league. So I'm sure we're all bought into where we're going to get to. I think it's the best way to navigate the next few years till we get to a point when we're really bringing in significant revenue for women's football. We're not there yet, unfortunately.
I would say, as an experience, coming down to Bristol last year was one of my favourite match day experiences. Just everything around the ground, the DJ, the food outlets. It's very unique for the rest of the league. So I think
it was often a yardstick we measured match day experiences to, was your match day experience, because we went out to the US this summer to experience their match day as well, and I think sometimes it can be a bit formulaic, and actually having a different way of approaching things, and the local foods and stuff like that, like we need more of that in the league, and actually it's something I think more clubs could learn from, is that experience. The cider apple race thing. We love that.
Desperate to do that one time. That's like my dream, is to be in the apple race.
We can sort that out. As long as you say nice things about it.
Make some great content for us.
I was going to ask about player development, because part of the strategy is about having not just developing players, but developing England players. And you talk about the responsibility that you feel to be able to do that within your catchment area. Obviously, quite a large catchment area. You kind of really stretch quite far. I think Lauren said last year, basically up to Birmingham or Oxford or something. So how are you looking at approaching that and kind of developing the future lionesses?
You might be able to answer it better in terms of like the historical journey, but from my side, it goes back to making sure the quality we deliver at the academy is the best, that people are not here because they just fall into the catchment area, but actually because this is the place to be. Trouble's coming when other teams start getting promoted and opening PGAs, etc. And we've got to make sure that when that day happens, we are still the academy of choice, and we can pull together the best players across the area with best coaching, and then back to that sense of belonging, making the players want to be here, part of the journey. A lot of my take is to be super transparent with players and staff alike. Like if the players know what journey we're on, what the difficulties are, what the quick wins are, they can buy into it in a better way. And I think that the sort of player knowledge around the women's game they're often quite sheltered from the truths of it within the clubs that they're in. And I lean towards like the more you know, the more you grow. It's like across the board for players and staff, it's only going to benefit you. And if anything, they'll start bringing ideas that maybe we didn't even think of because we're on the other side of that fence. And just by having that knowledge, they're changing the game. And like you said in the beginning, before we were recording, actually, like that the idea that they are the future, they're coming for our jobs. So if they're starting already early 20s or teens to see how it's done and what good looks like, then when they get here, we say, okay, thank you, we can be.
Yeah. I think a key thing is opportunity. If you look at when we won the championship, our average age is 22. Last season in the WSL, we were comfortably the youngest team, youngest squad. So I think it's really important that we've got to walk the walk. Yes, Romanay's right. We need to provide the best experience and the best facilities and the best coaching for those players so that they want to come, because it is increasingly competitive. At a younger age, there's a lot of competition out there to secure the best players, young players, even the ones within our area, and we've lost out to some, to some of the clubs in London, some of the London clubs or Birmingham clubs, who were in our area because they've offered them attractive packages to go at a very young age. So it is something that we've got to keep working hard at. But as I say, the key thing for me is opportunity. You look at Mary Ward, who at the moment she's 18. She's playing regularly. She had regular minutes in the WSL. So we've got to walk the walk. We've got to give opportunities to those young players, and I think that's part of our attraction. Because you look at someone like Aggie Beaver Jones, coming here and having a season on loan, and how good that was for her career. Grace Clinton. So we've got to be the destination of choice for those young players, because it's very hard for them to break into some of those big clubs. So we've got to keep providing them with that opportunity.
It's nice to hear as well, though, that being a goal and an objective that you're really willing to strive for, because it's not often talked about a lot. I know Robert Villaham at Spurs has openly said he wants to help create the next lioness, and that's attractive then to players when they hear you speak about that and saying our goal is to get you to a level where you could be playing for your country, and that's attractive.
Yeah, well, we talked about Naomi earlier, but you look at Naomi was a regular for us age 16. Yeah. So our hope would be that the best 15, 16-year-olds in our area or perhaps beyond our area looking at us thinking, well, if I'm good enough, I'll play for that club. I'll get in. Brooke was a regular at Rogaspin at 16 years old. So we've got to keep giving that opportunity, but we want players to think I can go there in a great environment, great coaching, play minutes, and progress my career.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm very excited about it. So, and as I said, we've always been big fans of Bristol since we started out. So, yeah, wishing you all the best with it and hope you achieve all that you want to.
Thank you.
Thank you for sitting down with us.
So really good chat with them, very open with us, which I really appreciated. And, I think a different way of doing things at a club, and I think maybe a more sustainable way of doing things, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the plan. I think it's an exciting time for Bristol. I think after last season in the WSL, obviously they would have wanted to stay up, as Gavin said, but it's a new time for them, a time to reset, maybe time to refocus and actually try and put the foundations in place to enable them to succeed both in the Championship and also hopefully when they get to the WSL again. And they've got so many plans in place to try and make it a revenue thriving company.
Yeah.
Don't know how to say that properly, but how to make the structures work so that they're both producing players and being like the area where players want to come and play both in their academy and their senior team. They serve a huge catchment area in the southwest. So they are covering a lot of ground, but also to then make money out of it and make it a return on investment.
Yeah, I really like hearing their ambition. It's very nice to hear from them. And the other thing that was really important to them, which you could tell from chatting to them, was that kind of community aspect and reaching out into the community. And I know it's something that's important and to the players and driven by the players as well. So we tacked along with Amy Rodgers and Mary Ward to a local primary school. I think their goal is to get 100 schools in the season. They're already up to something like 60 or something like that, which is incredible. And basically they will go along on a Wednesday to a school and meet some of the kids, chat to them about their journey, answer all of their weird and wonderful questions. And there is definitely a lot of them. And one thing that really surprised me was that the Messi-Ronaldo debate is still raging on right down to the age of 6 and 5 years old. And I do think Amy Rodgers missed a trick by not telling them that she had in fact played against Messi and scored against Argentina in the World Cup, because honest to God, I think they would have believed her. But you can tell how important it is to them to be those role models and to be visible for kids in those schools. And we caught up with them afterwards just to catch a little word to see how they were feeling after their time at the primary school. Here's what they had to say.
Right, so you've just come out of your presentation to a whole bunch of primary school kids. How was that for you?
It was fun, yeah. It's always great, kind of telling your story, and obviously the kids will just listen to anything. So yeah, it was really fun.
How about you? You were a bit nervous beforehand and about the questions they were going to ask.
Yeah, some of the questions were quite funny, but it was good to hear what they had to say and answer their questions.
What was it like afterwards? They all wanted to come up and get some signatures and they're getting tickets to the game. They're super excited about that as well.
Yeah, it's really inspiring, to be honest, realising how much of an impact you can have on young children in the city. Yeah, it's just really a really nice feeling, to be honest, knowing that we could inspire them.
And last one, how important is this kind of community work for you guys?
Really important. I just think, if it wasn't for people doing these things for me when I was younger, I probably wouldn't be where I was today. So I just think it's so important. And for girls to see us in these positions, we maybe didn't have that when we were younger. So I think it's just really special.
It's a very sweet, very cute, very little wholesome time down at Bristol. And that's kind of what I associate with Bristol City.
Well, I think it's
club.
It's always been about the community, even back in the day when, Lara was there as the communications person. They did so much outreach into the community, and it was kind of what the club was being built off. The crowds that they got to the SGS campus college pitch was, purely, I think, well, not purely down to that, but a huge part of it was down to the fact that they did do that outreach into the community, and the fact that they're carrying that on. I think it was very clear last season when we were down there how much that kind of builds into the Ashton Gate match day experience. It does have that real that feel around it, that kind of vibe
community
around it.
Vibe.
Yeah, and I think that's what they want to be for sport in Bristol. It's one of their aims, and with football, but then they also have rugby as well. And Bristol Sport is a big entity, so there's lots going on, and there's lots to thrive within that kind of structure. But yeah, I think the community side is absolutely key.
Yeah,
it's building the stars of tomorrow, but it's also making sure that you have that reputation within the community as an organisation that really cares.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed this little lift of the veil on Bristol City. And for those of you watching on YouTube, we appreciate you sticking with us. I know it's always trickier when there isn't a video to accompany all aspects of the episode, but I'm sure you can appreciate it was tricky with kind of multiple different moving parts, as well as going to a primary school with the players. So there was definitely some restrictions there. But we do hope you enjoy the episode. We will try and bring some more of these special episodes to you. We'll be back again on Monday for our usual. We'll talk to you then.